to Talks with Tracy with certified hypnotherapist, life coach, and licensed mental health professional, Tracy Claremont. Tracy will share her healing journey and explore the many meaningful alternative healing methods in our world today that will support you in doing your own deepest emotional healing. So please welcome the host of Talks with Tracy, Tracy Claremont. Let the suffering end and the healing begin.
Welcome to Talks with Tracy. I am your host, Tracy Claremont, coming to you live on the Bold Brave Television Network. Oh my goodness, I'm so excited to be here today. I apologize for the brief delay. I'm actually just getting all of this down. My very first show, my maiden voyage. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm so excited to be here. So I just want to start by thanking the Bold Brave Television Network for giving me this beautiful opportunity to be here on this platform with all of you. So thank you to Bold Brave Television. So what is Talks with Tracy? What can you expect from this show? So I can assure you that I come to you with the sole purpose and intention of encouraging deep, meaningful, emotional healing. That's the sole purpose of this show and what I intend to do. And through that, I hope to bring an end to people's suffering. Now, not me personally, but I hope to help you bring an end to your own suffering. There's so much suffering that goes on in the world today, and it really doesn't have to be. I know I have endured my own suffering in my lifetime, but it's so important to know that you don't have to live in suffering. There's different ways to do that deep, meaningful, emotional healing, and that's what I'll be talking to all of you about on my show. So that is the very purpose and intention, to encourage deep, meaningful, emotional healing that puts an end to your suffering. So now you might be thinking that's a pretty big statement to make, that this show, Talks with Tracy, could put it into your suffering, and that's not actually what I'm saying. What I am saying is that through this platform on this show, I will be bringing you different information about different ways to heal. There's so many different modalities of healing that people guide us through, and we'll be exploring those different healing modalities and looking at spiritual growth, how we can accomplish that. And these are often called alternative healing methods. And we will be having guests on the show who will talk about how they guide this healing. And I will be asking them to share their own healing journey, like their own struggles and suffering, and how they, like, different things they've done to heal, do their own healing. And you can kind of try it on, see what appeals to you, see what you're compelled toward. And I'll be encouraging you to notice what you are compelled toward, because that's your intuition talking. That's your inner guidance that's so important to listen to. So now it is a fact that you are your own greatest healer. And I am my own greatest healer. You know, so often in this world, we are conditioned to look outside of ourselves for our healing. You know, we exist within this medical model in our world that tells us that when we have pain and suffering, we go to a doctor and we take medications. We do treatments that are outside of ourselves. Now, I am not saying that those treatments are not appropriate and necessary and meaningful, because certainly they are. And if you are going seeing a doctor and taking medication and it's working for you, then by all means, keep doing that. Absolutely keep doing that. But we will be looking at a different kind of healing. We will be looking at healing that actually goes inward and looks at your emotional experience, because so much of our pain and our physical pain, our mental pain, is based in our emotional experience. And those are the kind of healing modalities that we'll be looking at and exploring on Talks with Tracy. So now I totally understand that doctors, they're taught to identify symptoms and treat symptoms, and they don't have time to spend an hour or two in the office with each one of us talking about our emotional experience. And there's great value in that. I never I'd never discredit the medical world or the world of medical research. They're having great breakthroughs all the time, and I appreciate that. But it is a fact that the field of medicine has really become commercialized, and we have been conditioned to believe that we need some things that we don't even need. I have diabetes, and I watch those commercials for diabetes medicines, and there are people, like, they turn it into a musical. They're spinning around and they're jumping and they're doing all these things to talk about a medication, and it's all for the purpose to sell it to us, because they're not singing about the side effects. There's no verses in there that talk about nausea and yeast infections, and I get that. That doesn't sell. So we've come to this place where a lot of our medicine has been commercialized, and a lot of our treatments revolve around what insurance companies will pay for, and it's kind of gotten off course from meaningful healing. Not to put down any doctors or anything like that. I'm certainly not trying to do that. But what we'll be looking at here is a whole different kind of healing. It'll be the healing where you look into your experience and you identify the emotions from your past that are driving you forward, because 95% of our thinking is done in our subconscious mind, and our past experiences and the emotions attached exist within our subconscious mind. So 95% of the time, we are living in our past experience. We're living in our past, and we're being driven by the emotions from our past. And so that it makes sense that this would be the very place to go to do the healing that would bring about an end to our suffering. So now I've had lots of people say, oh my gosh, Tracy, do I really have to go into my past? I am so over that. I do not want to think about that. It's behind me. It doesn't affect me. I don't want to go there. Well, I'm here to tell you that that is where your deepest emotional healing lies. And you don't have to relive your past. It's more of a reviewing your past so that you can know the emotions and identify those things and really go in and do the healing. So I am here to tell you that, going into your past experiences and really identifying the emotions attached that move you forward, it is an important thing, because those things get stuck in us. And then they color our perception in our daily lives. They dictate how we experience life. They can prevent us from enjoying life, from having meaningful relationships, from trusting. They can make us sick physically, mentally. They can even cause us to have behaviors that don't serve us, like addictions or dysfunctional patterns in relationship. And they can certainly limit our potential. So now, if they're not released in a healthy way, they will come out in unhealthy ways. They will show themselves. Now, the great news is we are not weak and fragile beings. We are actually strong, resilient beings. We are doing the work. So we each have the ability to heal our emotional wounds. And these are all things that we're going to be talking about here on Talks with Tracy, and sharing stories of that kind of healing journey. I will be beginning today with my own healing journey, sharing it with you. All right, so I have a knowing that we are all souls having a human experience, and it's come to my knowing through my healing that we all exist. We're all souls on the same journey, and the end point of that journey, the place we're trying to get to, is this place of unconditional love and acceptance for ourselves. So we're all on the same journey, whether we have that awareness or not. Now, we're all on a continuum. At one end of the continuum is no unconditional love and acceptance for ourselves. And if any of you out there are there, I feel so deeply for you, because this is a very lonely, frightening, awful, dark place to be. It's a place of deepest suffering. And then all the way out the other end of the continuum is is pure, true love and acceptance for ourselves, full love and acceptance for ourselves. And that is a place of love and light and peace and joy. And we're all someplace on this continuum. I'm on this continuum right along with you. You know, a continuum, it's a continuous sequence of elements that lie adjacent to each other. That's what a continuum is. And I'm right there on the continuum as well. I would love to be able to say I am at the end with full unconditional love and acceptance for myself. However, I'm still on this journey and I'm not there yet. I hope to be there one day. But I'm right along there with you, with all of you. And not one of us is better than the other. Some of us have awareness, some of us do not, but the honest truth is as we peel away the layers, we're all the same. We're all connected in sameness. So now, as I said, I will be having guests on the show who will be sharing their stories and their how they guide healing in future episodes. So now I saw on Facebook the other day a post from a young woman, and her post said, "I'm so drained, overwhelmed, unappreciated. I'm never going to be good enough, so why even try? I'm so alone." Oh my goodness, that is suffering. That is true suffering. And this this young woman, she's living in her past experience. She has past experience that has shown her, told her, proven to her that she is not worth anything. And she has that emotion stuck within her, and she's just being driven through the world on that emotion. But what I'm telling you is that it doesn't have to be that way. It does not have to be that way. So my vision for this show is to provide a safe place to explore healing, different ways to heal. And I hope to encourage you. I am even going to ask you, to jump in, take the risk, face your fears, and do that healing, because it is so meaningful and it's so important. You know, and then we will share stories and we will connect in sameness. And when we know that we're not alone in our experience, it feels good. It feels good to not be alone. Loneliness is it's a very dark place to be, and so many people feel it. And then so many people stay in their suffering and don't realize that there are ways to get out of that. All right, so now I'm going to be sharing my own healing journey with you today. And the only way I can do that is to put it in the context of struggle and emotional suffering. So I'll be giving like a brief synopsis of my life. I could literally talk about this for 20 shows, but I'm going to put this into one show today. I'm going to share my healing journey, starting with my life experience and the struggles and the suffering that I have endured. And then next week, so that'll be part one. Then next week, I will be sharing the healing part of my journey. Like how did I clean up the mess? How did I turn it around? What was helpful to me? What modalities of guidance did I use? How did I do my healing and come to my knowings and heal my emotional wounds to come to this place where I am at today? So that is all going to be part 2 next week. But first, today, I'm going to be sharing with you my life. And I like to call it getting naked. Now, no worries, my clothes will stay on, but and when I told my son, my adult son, that I was going to be doing a segment on Bold Brave Television called Getting Naked, he was like, "Oh my gosh, Mom, please, I will not be able to watch that." Well, no worries, son. My clothes are going to be staying on. I will be getting naked, though, with all of you on this platform by sharing my story, being emotionally vulnerable and exposing myself, so to speak. So that is all going to be coming up on my next segment. So please stay tuned, take a moment, do a little self-care out there. We're going to go to a brief commercial break. And when we come back, I will be sharing my story. So thank you for watching, This is Tracy Claremont on Talks with Tracy on Bold Brave Television Network. Coming to all of you. We will be back in a couple of minutes.
What if there were a super tiny device that could diagnose the brain and is smaller than a single human hair? What if you could see inside the brain to help an epilepsy patient during surgery or to help the fight against Parkinson's disease? Dr. Patricia Broderick is proud to announce the Broderick Probe, a biomedical and electronic breakthrough. Imagine a probe to help with the understanding and potential cure of brain-related diseases. To learn more, listen live to the Easy Sense radio show with host Dr. Broderick, Wednesdays 7 p.m. Eastern on the Bold Brave Media Network and TuneIn Radio. And to help support the Broderick Foundation, please go to EasySense.com and learn how, with your help, we can fight these horrific brain disorders. That's EasySense.com to learn more and help support the Broderick Foundation. Author, radio show host, and coach John M. Hawkins reveals strategies to help gain perspective, build confidence, find clarity, achieve goals. John M. Hawkins' new book, Coached to Greatness, Unlock Your Full Potential with Limitless Growth, published by iUniverse. Hawkins reveals strategies to help readers accomplish more. He believes the book can coach them to greatness. Hawkins says that the best athletes get to the top of their sport with the help of coaches, mentors, and others. He shares guidance that helps readers reflect on what motivates them, rediscover and assess their core values, philosophies, and competencies, find settings that allow them to be the most productive, and track their progress towards accomplishing goals. Listen to John Hawkins' My Strategy, Saturdays, 1 p.m. Eastern on the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio.
All right, welcome back to Talks with Tracy. I'm your host, Tracy Claremont, coming to you live on the Bold Brave Television Network. Thank you so much to the couple people in my family who put chats in the screen. I so appreciate that. I love the support. I am working through my very first show. So as before the break, I mentioned that I'll be sharing part one of my story, my own life in the context of struggle and suffering, because that's the only way I can talk about my healing. So that's how I'll be talking about it today. I like to call it getting naked because I'm getting emotionally vulnerable and exposing myself, so to speak. Now, I do this with the intention of providing an example of what it really looks like to do the deep dive inward. And as I said before, through this show, I'll be encouraging you to do your own healing, to take the risk, to face your fears, and really step into meaningful emotional healing. And I would never ask you to do something that I am not willing to do myself or have not done myself already. So who am I anyway, and how did I come to be here on Bold Brave Television? Oh my gosh, that is such a good question. I have asked myself that many times also, like, how on earth did I come to be here? And, I would never have imagined being here on this platform doing a show with you. It would have never entered my mind that this would be happening, but it is. And I can tell you that, you know, it's come as a result of my healing that I'm able to do this. And it'll become clear as I share my story why I would have never imagined this. So I'm just going to jump in. I'm going to start from the beginning. I was born in California. I moved to Montana with my mom and dad and my older brother at the age of 3. We came to Montana because it's from where my dad was from. And I live in the small town that I grew up in Montana. I still live in the same house that I grew up in, actually. So I left for college and I came back. But I've been here with my family throughout. My parents, they remained married until my dad passed away when I was in my late 30s. I had a really safe and stable, beautiful childhood. I had great parents. I was aware of having a birth defect when I was born that caused me to have multiple surgeries and multiple extended hospital stays between the ages of 1 and 3. But I didn't think that this was anything that affected me, because when my mom would talk to me, she'd show me pictures. I was always a happy baby. I was playing. I had a big smile on my face. My family had big smiles. I did have a body cast that went from my armpits all the way to my toes. And my family, they would make me these little carts with wheels so I could get around and go to places and play. But they always talked about it in a positive way that made me think that it was an okay experience, that it wasn't anything that affected me in a negative way. And I always told people I had no trauma in my childhood. Now, spoiler alert, this will be a big deal when I talk about my healing. It'll come up as one of the areas of driving emotion that really impacted me throughout my whole life. But I had no awareness of this through the majority of my life. So, as I mentioned, I grew up in the home with my mom and dad and my older brother. My brother's 4 years older than me. He is a completely unique, genuine individual, and he always has been all through his childhood. He did what he liked to do. He was his own person, his own genuine self, and he really didn't seem to care about what other people thought of him. And I mention that because I was the opposite. I was always trying to be the perfect little girl. I had parents who encouraged me to be myself, but I just had it in my mind that I had to be perfect and I had to behave a certain way and live up to expectations of what a perfect child is. And I really was just painfully bashful. Oh my gosh. I hid behind my parents' legs. Um, I My mom literally had to peel me off of her every morning at kindergarten. It was a nightmare. She'd peel me off of herself and put me on the teacher. I was just so terrified to be out in the world. And I had all of these obsessive compulsive behaviors. I would count in my head. I would count my steps. I would touch things a certain way. I would do all sorts of different things. And I don't know if my family really knew that I had that much going on in my mind, and I was so ridden with fear and anxiety. But I do know that my mom knew my strict bedtime ritual because she adhered to it every night. And she did this, I'm sure, because she wanted me to go to sleep. But it had to be done in a certain order, and I'd wiggle in between my sheets, and I'd put them up to my neck, and I'd have my mom tuck me in as tight as I could, as tight as she could, and that's how I went to sleep at night. Now, in thinking about it, why would a child who has such a stable home life and near perfect parenting be completely ridden with fear and anxiety? It just doesn't make sense, but it's just the way it was, and that's how it happened. So I didn't really think about it. I did better in high school. I found my group of friends, and I enjoyed high school, but I was always just the one who wanted to cheer others on and stay in the background with other people performing and competing and whatnot, and me just remaining hidden. So, in keeping with my mission to do what was expected of me, I graduated high school, I went to college. I did take a risk and go to college in California. I had the opportunity to do that because of my parents' willingness to pay for that. And I wanted to go to California. I was 18 years old. I wanted to be on beaches, and I wanted to be around like city life and rich people and all these kind of glamorous things that I thought California was. So I wanted to go to UC Santa Cruz because that's where the beaches were, and I got accepted to UC Berkeley, which turned out to be an incredible thing, but there were no beaches there. So when my parents brought me to Berkeley, it was like kindergarten all over again. I was looking at my mom. I was like, please do not leave me here. Do not leave me. And I know she wanted to toss me in the trunk, hide me away, and show my dad that I was actually with them still once we got back to Montana. But thankfully, she didn't do that. And my dad had a strong backbone. And he said, no, Tracy, you're going to do this. So I did. I went to Berkeley. I graduated with a degree in social welfare. And I came back closer to home. I went to Eastern Washington University for my master's degree. And I was only 3.5 hours away from home at that point, which is totally reasonable driving distance by Montana standards. So I was happier there. I completed my master's degree and I came back to my hometown to practice in the field of social work. I became employed immediately. Now, my employers, they loved me. Oh my gosh, they loved me because I was like the little workhorse behind the scenes. I was developing programs. I was doing good social work, good solid social work. I felt good about myself because I was able to have a positive impact on the lives of other people. And I was a master at placing my focus, my energy, my attention outside of myself. So I was very successful as a social worker. And again, my my employers, they just loved me because I would literally build a program and give them all the words to go out and talk about it. And I was fine with others taking credit for the work that was being done because I didn't want to be noticed. So I had this push-pull thing going on where I was I wanted to do great things. I really wanted to do great things. And I was like, but I must remain hidden. I must remain unnoticed. I must stay, be on the down low with all of this. I can't be seen. And it was causing a lot of suffering in my life. Um, it was so bad that I'd go to a conference, and I loved going to conferences, right? You go to a conference, you're like one of 200, 300 people in a big room. I really enjoyed being that one person in out of 200 to be in a room. And the minute that things changed, like the minute that speakers said, now we're going to break out into small groups. Oh my gosh, whoosh, overwhelmed with anxiety at the thought of just breaking out into small groups. Now, I would go to my, like my go-to excuses. I was really busy. In that circumstance, I'd be like, excuse me, I have really important phone calls to make. And I would excuse myself out of that conference room. And I'd get on the phone out in the hallway. Sometimes I might be calling work. I might be making a work phone call. Sometimes I was calling my sisters. Sometimes I was just faking a phone call to stay out of that room so that I could stay out of the small group setting inside. I could stay out of that situation where I was going to have to use my voice and speak. So now when you are successful in your field and you do get promoted to leadership positions and management positions, well, what happens? You get asked to come and share and talk about lots of different things, and that did happen for me. I was asked to um, I was asked to come talk all the time and speak. So I would do my go-to excuses: way too busy, way too busy, got way too much on my plate, and then I'd delegate, and I'd have people go in my place to speak, be the words. I tell them everything to say, even. I'd even write it out for them sometimes, like, hey, go and say this. Thank you. I'll be back here at the office working diligently. So now this did serve my supervisors. It did not serve me. So now in thinking about how all of this has impacted my life, I really can see now. I did not have awareness then, but I can really see now how it limited my potential. I mean, I was successful with this energy happening with me, being driven by this emotion. I was still successful, but I can only imagine like what could have been had I not had this driving energy impacting me. Um, you know, I can only imagine what would have happened if I would have been willing to get out there, speak, do all these different things that I was asked to do. But I wasn't able to. I had this push-pull thing. Do great things, but hide. How do you do great things and remain hidden? It makes no sense. But that's where I was at. That's what was happening inside of me. I was very good at putting on an outer appearance of having myself together, of you know, appearing to look like I wasn't struggling and suffering when I really, really was inside. So now, again, why? Where does all this come from? I really had no awareness. I just knew it was there. So, with all of this experience, my childhood, my early education, my early career, I was suffering. However, this suffering that I was experiencing, it wasn't the kind of suffering that really just brought me to my knees. You know, that kind of suffering where you're just feeling so broken, like I can't do this anymore. I can't go on like this. All of this that I just described, it didn't bring me to that point. It wasn't enough suffering to bring me to that point. However, it wasn't even enough to bring me to the point of asking the question, Trace, why? Why is this happening? Why are you feeling this way? What is going on with you? So I really was brought to the point of being on my knees in intimate relationship. That's where my breaking point came with all of these driving emotions. That's where it came. And you know, I was a master at putting my attention, my energy, my focus outside of myself. I was driven by fear and anxiety. I was needing to be in the background, to be unnoticed, to hide. And, you know, that's why I said at the beginning of this segment, I would never have imagined me being here today with you doing a show. I would never have imagined this because of these things, because of these driving forces. And this has only come as a result of my healing. So, I became broken in the context of intimate relationships, and that's where I'm going to go next. That's what I'm going to talk about next on the next segment, continuing to get naked, this time in the context of intimate relationship. So, before we go there, and yes, we are going to go there, let's just take a brief commercial break. You're watching me, Tracy Claremont, on Talks with Tracy, coming to you live on the Bold Brave Television Network. So take a moment, do some self-care out there. I'm going to do the same, and I'll meet you right back here in a couple of minutes.
Did you know that your beliefs create your entire reality, but it's the subconscious beliefs that do most of the creating? Belief shifter and life coach Shiraz can help you identify those limiting beliefs and eliminate them, often in a single session.
Like it was almost instant, like I had relief right away.
Creating better health, relationships, careers, and finances. Let Shiraz help you step out of safety and into awareness.
Definitely something's happening. It's like a flow inside. You know, it feels good.
Whether in person or online, Shiraz provides personal coaching, belief shifting. Visit Shiraz at energeticmagic.com or call 416-529-7429. Energetic Magic on the BBM Global Network, Tuesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern. Find your greater happiness. Be well. Be aware. Be magical.
Are you struggling to care for elderly parents or a spouse? Do you wonder if being a caregiver is making you sick? Are you worried about taking time off work to care for elderly parents and balance work, life, and caregiving? Has caregiving become exhausting and emotionally draining? Are you an aging adult who wants to remain independent, but you're not sure how? I'm Pamela D. Wilson. Join me for the Caring Generation radio show for caregivers and aging adults, Wednesday evenings, 6 Pacific, 7 Mountain, 8 Central, and 9 Eastern, where I answer these questions and share tips for managing stress, family relationships, health, well-being, and more. Podcasts and transcripts of The Caring Generation are on my website, PamelaDWilson.com, plus my caregiving library, online caregiver support programs, and programs for corporations interested in supporting working caregivers. Help, hope, and support for caregivers is here on The Caring Generation and PamelaDWilson.com.
Welcome back to Talks with Tracy. I'm your host, Tracy Claremont, coming to you live on the Bold Brave Television Network. Thank you so much for joining me on this very first show. Now, before the break, I shared with you some of my experience in my childhood, my early adulthood, my education, my early career. And this is sharing that I like to call Getting Naked, because it's talking about my life in the context of my emotional experience, my struggles and my suffering. So all of this is reviewing my life for the purpose, not reliving my life, but reviewing my life in a safe manner for the purpose of demonstrating a deep dive inward that I'm going to be encouraging all of you to do in your own healing. So now, in doing so, there were some pervasive patterns of belief and emotion and behavior that really came to the surface and have been there throughout my lifetime. And I wasn't aware of this for the majority of my lifetime, but they included, doing what was expected of me by other people's expectations, a drive to be unnoticed and remain hidden, overwhelming feelings of fear and anxiety, and, just so much fear and anxiety that limited my potential. And it really caused me to suffer. It may not have appeared that I was suffering, but I was suffering on the inside. So I just had this pattern of placing my attention, my energy, my focus on the outside, focusing on the well-being of others, focusing on the success of others, focusing on the happiness of others, and not on my own. So these were all patterns that were shown. And again, this is why I say that I'd never imagined that I would have been here doing a show with you today. It's all come as a result of my healing. I'm so thankful to have done that healing and to be here with you today. So now, again, I said none of that actually caused me to just be broken and be taken to my knees with suffering. That came in the context of intimate relationship. And, intimate relationships, it's our friends, it's our romantic relationships, it's our family relationships. And where are we most vulnerable and naked? That is in our most intimate relationships. That's where things hurt the most. So now let's think about this. What would all of this look like, or what does all of this look like in the context of relationship? Oh my goodness, codependency perhaps? Yes, with a capital C. Yes, so codependence, it's the concept that refers to people who feel extreme amounts of dependency on certain loved ones in their lives, and they feel responsible for the feelings and the actions of those loved ones. Oh my goodness, this was me in relationships, so codependent. I just became all consumed with this mission to make everybody happy. Strive, 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 work, work, work to make everybody happy. Do more, provide more, do everything I could, sacrifice more. So unfortunately, that is not sustainable in a lifetime, because you become exhausted and depleted and engulfed in self-sacrifice, and you really, really suffer. And, I worked so hard to make other people happy, when I'd fail, I'd take it as a sign to just work harder, try harder, do more. When really, I can only make myself happy. I was always going to fail at that, because I can't make other people happy. I'm only able to make myself happy regardless of how I try. So I failed over and over again. Now, one of the rules of the mind is that whatever we focus on, we move towards, and whatever our energy is, we draw to us. So with this energy, I drew people who often capitalized off of my issues, and they took advantage of me. They mistreated me. Many people mistreated me as a result of this, and created even more suffering within me. So in my most intimate relationships, this drive to be unnoticed and hide just completely engulfed me. I became enmeshed with other people. I took on other people's likes and dislikes. I lived up to their expectations of me. I was just so invested in being the perfect employee, being the perfect wife, being the perfect mom, all by other people's definitions, and, kind of bowing down to my superiors in all these contexts, with everybody being superior to me. It was as though I was telling people with my own actions and behaviors that I didn't matter, and it was okay. I didn't matter. So I lost myself. I lost myself in these relationships. And, the sad thing is I was perfectly willing to do it. I was generating it myself. But eventually, it just became to a place where it was killing me. I was drowning in it. It was breaking me. So now the definition of broken is having become fractured and damaged, no longer in one piece, no longer in working order. And that was me. That's how I felt with the passing of time. I was suffering. So now, for the sake of this exploration today, I am just choosing to lump all of my herders into one group of people. And there are enough people, herders in my lifetime, to make up a group. So I'm going to put them all in a group and talk about the hurting that happened to me in general terms, because they all had similar patterns of treating me, behavioral patterns in relationship. They all treated me in similar ways. And, it really serves no purpose for me to call people out, say what was done to me, blame people. There's certainly no positivity in shaming people. So that really doesn't serve me, because this is a deep dive inward. I don't want to look outward. And it's with this deep dive inward, it brings about empowerment, because it's my life. I made the choices I made. So I am the one who needs to do the healing as well. So now, don't get me wrong, this is a story of betrayal, for certain. It's a story of betrayal, but what I've come to understand through my healing is that I am my own greatest betrayer. I am my own greatest healer, and I am my own greatest hurter. All of those things. So if I can look at the betrayal that I've done to myself, the hurt that I've caused to myself, then I can heal myself. That's what a deep dive inward is and what it looks like. And that's what I'm doing. And, I don't ever want to be the victim in my own story. I'd much rather be the hero or the savior in my own story. I want to be my own greatest healer. So it doesn't serve a purpose to look outward. Now, I will say that I had beautiful people in my life, kind, loving people, genuinely loving people. My parents, my children, my coworkers. I had great coworkers, my friends, my three closest friends that I call my sisters, Roberta, Hiccups, and Martha. They were all such great people in my lifetime, and they did call me out at certain times, like, Trace, what are you doing? Sometimes gently, sometimes not so gently. What are you doing? Do you really want to live like this? Why are you doing this? And I would poo-poo it all away. I would reason, I would rationalize. I would be like, no, 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 no. Everything's great. I feel great. I'm so happy. When all of that suffering was happening and they could see it in me, I couldn't hide it. Well, actually, I thought I was really good at hiding it. And in thinking about my life, it came to my attention. I remembered that in two different times in my life, these are two completely different relationships, two completely different times in my life. I had two completely different women approach me and hand me the information for domestic violence shelters. And I remember the first time I was like, what? Why would you do that? That's weird. And, I just kind of shrugged it off. They had witnessed me being with a partner. And the second time it happened, though, I was like, oh my gosh, how can this be happening again? And that information was handed to me by a social worker. And she told me that she could see in my relationship that I looked afraid, I looked small, I looked inferior. And again, I looked afraid, and she was concerned for me. And I remember telling her I didn't need that information. And then I was like indignant. I was like, I didn't say this to her, but in my mind, I'm like, how dare you hand me that information? And now I really see that I was saying, how dare you expose the dysfunction of my completely dysfunctional relationship? How dare you try to help me when I'm completely invested in my own helplessness? How dare you try to empower me when I have systematically given away every last ounce of my power for years and to multiple people? How dare you? Yeah, so if that's not self-betrayal, I don't know what is. And now I say, Tracy, how dare you? How dare you betray yourself? That's not okay. So I went on like this for years. Trying harder, doing more, just trying to make people happy when I could not make people happy. And I focused all my attention, energy, everything outside of myself. And I just became exhausted. Oh my gosh, exhausted, depleted, unhealthy, overweight, just on and on and on. I was a mess. And then I was just suffering inside. I still had my mouth closed, but I was suffering inside. And then one day I was driving down the highway. I had just completed a group with it was a parenting group with a group of women who were in a shelter. And I was feeling pretty good about it. It went really well. I really felt like I helped them. I always felt good about helping people. So I was driving down the highway and I came up over this hill. It was a beautiful spring day. And it was just so beautiful. The sun was shining. And all of a sudden I had this moment where I was overcome with this sense of joy and fulfillment. And I was like, oh my gosh, life is so good. And it was like my soul was speaking to me. I had never had a moment like this. It was like my soul was speaking to me and it was saying, yes, Tracy, it is your time to live. And in that blissful moment of pure love and light energy, I decided, you know what? I am going to make my own decisions. I am going to manage my own money. I am going to do relationships the way I want to do relationships. I am going to do what interests me. I'm going to do what I want to do when I want to do it. And I'm going to stop doing what other people want me to do. It's time for me to live my life and I'm going to do it. And I was just like, yes, this is amazing. It's like my soul was saying, Tracy, enough is enough. It's time to live. That was a big moment for me. Now you would think that would be an end, that it would be the end to my suffering, right? And the beginning of some glorious, enlightened existence. But no, it was actually the beginning of the fight for my life, the fight for my freedom. And it was the beginning of an absolutely terrifying time in my life. And I would not use the words fight for my life easily or freely. I am careful about the words that I speak, but this is what it was. This is what it felt like. This is what it turned out to be. And it was so important because I had trained people how to treat me. I had trained people that I don't matter, that things that I wanted in my life, it didn't matter. I didn't need the spotlight. In fact, please, I want to stay hidden. I want to make everybody else look good. And now I was saying, I don't want to live like that anymore. I'm going to turn this ship around. Now, I do hope that in saying that nobody takes this as me blaming the victim. I in no way condone all of the things that were done to me, all the maltreatment that happened to me in my lifetime. I don't condone that. It wasn't okay. But again, I'm looking at my own deep dive inward and how I created this life for myself, these situations. And that is, it's good news that I have responsibility in that, because I can only change myself. I can't go out there and change all my hurters. I can't do that, but I can change myself. So I'm not blaming the victim. In fact, I choose not to be a victim. I'm empowering myself, and I'm encouraging everybody else to do that as well. Maybe your healing looks different from mine. So anyways, what happens when people rise up against their oppressors? When people rise up against their hurters, we see it all over the world all the time. When oppressed people rise up, war breaks out. So what does war look like in the context of relationship? That's what I'm going to be talking about in my next segment, what that looks like. in the context of relationships. So please stay tuned. We're going to take another brief commercial break. You are listening to Tracy Claremont on Talks with Tracy, coming to you live on the Bold Brave Television Network. Take a moment, do some self-care out there. I will do the same, and I'll meet you right back here in a couple of minutes.
Did you know that your beliefs create your entire reality, but it's the subconscious beliefs that do most of the creating? Belief shifter and life coach Shiraz can help you identify those limiting beliefs and eliminate them, often in a single session.
Like it was almost instant, like I had relief right away.
Creating better health, relationships, careers, and finances. Let Shiraz help you step out of safety and into awareness.
Definitely something's happening. It's like a flow inside. It feels good.
Whether in person or online, Shiraz provides personal coaching, belief shifting. Visit Shiraz at energeticmagic.com or call 416-529-7429. Energetic Magic on the BBM Global Network, Tuesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern. Find your greater happiness. Be well. Be aware. Be magical.
Are you struggling to care for elderly parents or a spouse? Do you wonder if being a caregiver is making you sick? Are you worried about taking time off work to care for elderly parents and balance work, life, and caregiving? Has caregiving become exhausting and emotionally draining? Are you an aging adult who wants to remain independent, but you're not sure how? I'm Pamela D. Wilson. Join me for the Caring Generation radio show for caregivers and aging adults, Wednesday evenings, 6 Pacific, 7 Mountain, 8 Central, and 9 Eastern, where I answer these questions and share tips for managing stress, family relationships, health, well-being, and more. Podcasts and transcripts of The Caring Generation are on my website, PamelaDWilson.com, plus my caregiving library, online caregiver support programs, and programs for corporations interested in supporting working caregivers. Help, hope, and support for caregivers is here on The Caring Generation and PamelaDWilson.com.
Welcome back to Talks with Tracy. I'm your host, Tracy Claremont, coming to you live on the Bold Brave Television Network. Thanks for coming back. This is my last segment, and as I said before the break, I am going to look at what war looks like in the context of a relationship, and also in the context of all these emotions that have driven me through my whole lifetime. So I ended the last segment by saying, like, what happens when oppressed people rise up against their oppressors? We see it in our world all over. War breaks out. War breaks out. It never happens where, oppressed people rise up and say, no more, I will not do this. This is not okay. And then, the oppressors are like, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't realize that we were affecting you that way. We will change our behavior immediately. That never happens. That does not happen. So again, what does war look like in the context of rising up against your herders? That kind of war. All right. So I think all of you can relate to this, having experienced these kind of things at some point in your lifetime. It looks like overwhelming fear and pain and threats and guilt and anger and words said that cut to your core, just overwhelming stress, overwhelming anxiety, physical illness, emotional, mental illness. Those kind of emotional beatdowns that it just brings you to your knees and you just want to give up. It's so painful and hard. And, sometimes it's even like physical beatings when we rise up against our herders, or even threats to our lives. I mean, this is serious, serious stuff. Now, I'm not saying that all those things happened to me in the context of relationship, but I am saying that many did. I can assure you that many did, and it was extremely, extremely terrifying and extremely painful, this process of rising up against my herders. So, some things I know. I know that depression is based in fear. I understand that. I know that underlying fear in relationship often manifests itself in power and control. I also understand, again, that when people rise up against their oppressors, or when an individual rise up rises up against their herders, these people don't just, these herders, they just don't back down and apologize. You know, this is not what herders do. This is not what oppressors do. They actually strengthen their hold, and they start to do things, that strengthen their hold. So, and I understand, I totally get that these herders are coming from a place of intense fear themselves. I understand that. And they'll do whatever they can to reestablish power and control. So these can be manipulative strategies and aggression. I understand all of that from an intellectual perspective, and from an emotional perspective. This fight for my life, it was terrifying and devastating at times. Terrifying and devastating. So now this is when I became so very grateful for those sisters in my life, or whomever your supporters are. It could be your brother, your sister, your coworkers, your friends, your family members, whoever it is in your life. I sincerely hope that in these moments of need, you have supporters like I did. So in my case, it was my sisters, Roberta, Hiccups, and Martha. And they are just incredibly strong women, and they literally became my backbone when I had none. They became my brains when my body was so stuck in fight, flight, or freeze that I could not even think. My brain was so activated by my nervous system. My nervous system was on fire. I was stuck and I couldn't think, and they became my brains. They took care of my children when I wasn't able to. And they reminded me, and this is so important, they reminded me over and over and over again that I was not selfish, that I got to be happy too, and that my happiness was worth this entire battle. And they helped me to stay focused and move forward, and I'm forever grateful to them. They're amazing. All right, so I did what was necessary. I was brave. I was courageous. I did what was necessary to change these self-destructive behaviors and patterns, and I came to some truths about it. And I did some spiritual growth. And looking back, I'm so thankful that I chose myself. I chose to empower myself. I chose to live in a different way, regardless of how terrifying it was, and regardless of how the fight was. I've talked a lot about the subconscious mind, and how we have these beliefs about ourselves that lead us down a path of self-betrayal. But there's a point when your awareness does come, and you do know that you have choices that you can make, and that's more in your conscious mind. And there's a whole different kind of betrayal that comes if you betray yourself in your conscious mind. But it's almost like, had I not chosen to make the changes, I would have been saying that I am not worth protecting. And if I'm saying to myself that I am not worth protecting, then how am I any better than my herders? Right? Ugh. Deep thoughts. Yep. Anyway, so I love the work of Carolyn Mace. She talks about self-betrayal, and she defines it as when you're put into a position where you feel that you have to negotiate your sense of integrity. Now, what's integrity? It's your moral compass. Integrity is defined as the quality of being honest and having strong moral principles. And when you're in a position in relationship where you have to betray your sense of integrity, that's when real suffering happens. That's it. It's where, it's like you're saying to yourself, I want to get out of this situation, but I am too afraid. I'm too afraid to take care of myself. So I will lie about how happy I am, and I will put up a front. That's a whole nother level of self-betrayal, right? And in this way, you lie to yourself and you continue on, and you're not following your heart, and your heart suffers. And, when we make that choice, we hurt ourselves. This is true suffering. I don't want to live in suffering, and you don't have to live in suffering either. So now, how does a person turn this all around? How does a person clean up this mess? What steps do you take? How do you heal? That's what I'm going to be talking about next week, next Thursday, on Talks with Tracy. I'm going to talk about the healing, how I turned all this around, how I cleaned up this mess. So I will be back here next Thursday. I hope that you join me. If you would like to contact me, I can be reached on my website at tracyclaremonthypnotherapy.com. If you want to give me feedback about the show, if you want to book hypnotherapy or life coaching with me, if you just want to suggest a guest or be a guest, please contact me. I'd love to hear from you. So until next week, this has been Talks with Tracy. I am your host, Tracy Claremont, coming to you live on the Bold Brave Television Network. Thank you so much for joining me for my first show.
This has been Talks with Tracy. Join us each week as Tracy and her guests will come together and realize that underneath it all, we are all the same and never alone. So join us each week and let Talks with Tracy be your safe place to land in your healing journey. Right here, Thursdays, 11 a.m. Eastern on the Bold Brave TV network.